Hey there, this is Tyler, and this is the first episode of Talking with Tyler. I started this podcast because I really miss going to shows, meeting other artists, and honestly, just interacting with other people in general. So this is my way of having conversations with other artists whose work I'm interested in. Hopefully this is appealing to people who listen to their music and want to know more about their creative process. Or this may also be helpful for people who are interested in growing as musicians themselves. So that's my intro. I hope you enjoy these conversations as much as I did. This is episode 1 with Gowan. Here's a clip from his song Snakes off his most recent album, Last Companion. Yeah. Where are you at today? Are you in DC?
No, so I moved back to my hometown, Raleigh, North Carolina. So yeah, that's where I'm from originally, and then I went to DC for college.
Okay.
And so I graduated, and then I moved back here like towards the end of 2019.
Okay.
So yeah, I live here in Raleigh with my roommate Caroline and my girlfriend Amelia. So,
okay. Nice.
Yeah, so it's cool. We live near like NC State in Raleigh, if anyone's familiar with the area.
I'm not super familiar with North Carolina. My family used to go to the Outer Banks for vacation sometimes, yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, so I have a very good impression of North Carolina, or like a very positive association with North Carolina. I'm sure it's not all a beach, but in my mind it is. You know?
Yeah, the beaches are awesome here. I honestly haven't been to the beach in a while. But yeah, I really like North Carolina. I think Raleigh is like, it's not like a crazy extravagant town. There's not like, if someone was visiting as like a tourist, I wouldn't know what to show them, but it's a decent sized city, a lot of good live music and venues and stuff to do at night. And I like it. So obviously none of that going on right now really to speak of, but yeah.
So you moved back to North Carolina at the end of 2019. So you were already settled there before the pandemic?
Yeah. We moved into this house that I'm living at right now in December of 2019.
Okay.
So we got about 3 or 4 months before the pandemic. And then we renewed our lease here for another year. So, but yeah, so it's been almost entirely pandemic since I've been back.
Yeah. Your whole experience has been staying home probably.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask some of your history about music to start. Do you remember like what your first experience with music was, or like where you participated, or it just made an impression on you?
Yeah. I don't remember it super vividly because I was like 3, but my parents like showed me the Beatles, and I got like, that like Beatles mania obsession as a 3-year-old. Like I was really into all those songs. And there was that Yellow Submarine animated movie. Have you ever seen that? Yeah. I was obsessed with that as like a 3-year-old. So like I had like action figures of like the Blue Meanies.
Oh yeah.
from that movie. So yeah, that's like my first memory of being like moved by music. It was like as a very young child. But then my dad plays guitar, and he started showing me guitar when I was 8. And so that's when I started learning, and he showed me Pink Floyd, which was is his favorite band. And he used to like play them in the car for me and stuff when I was like very little. And I was like, man, what is this? This is like slow. Wow. and then he showed me again when I was 8, and I'd started playing guitar, and I got really obsessed with like Pink Floyd. And that was the first like band that I loved other than the Beatles.
You got set up right, like to be exposed to like the Beatles and Pink Floyd at such a young age. Those are two, like your parents were prepping you for like good taste. Right?
Yeah, I still love both of those bands. Beatles get a lot of social media hate, and I think it's a contrarian thing mostly. But I don't think they're overrated.
I don't think so either. I was thinking about this morning, actually. I've never gotten into them to the point where I don't feel like a poser. Do you know what I mean by that? Like I listen to the stuff I'm supposed to listen to, but I don't feel like I've crossed that threshold of like a poser listening to the Beatles. You know what I mean?
Well, I get that. I mean, they just have so much music. Like I probably haven't heard half of the music they've made.
Yeah.
And I also like these days I'm not like I don't put on much classic rock to speak of these days. It's not that I dislike it. I wore all of that out like pretty early in my life. Yeah. So I feel you. I'm not like regularly listening to that stuff now. So maybe I'm a poser too.
Maybe. I don't know. Who's to say? The Yellow Submarine animation, that was like kind of a big acid trip video, right? Like, I think it's funny how so much of old Sesame Street videos and some of that animation of that time was obviously just people having like acid trips and animating it. And then it's super marketable to kids. Like, I love that stuff.
Yeah. It's weird. Like, as a kid, like, you don't look at that and immediately associate it with drugs.
Right.
Or you don't have some kind of, like, cliche, like, archetype of what that is in your mind.
Right. It's like, whoa, colors and, like, cool shapes. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish that was how I saw that stuff now. Like, anytime I see stuff that looks like that now, my, like, first reaction is like, oh, this is...
drugs.
Yeah, like cool, man. Nice acid art.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, so you grew up kind of being exposed to Pink Floyd and the Beatles, and then you started playing guitar when you were 8. Was that your first instrument you started?
Yeah. I think I like had expressed a desire to play like piano or guitar earlier, but then I think like whatever like instructor my parents went to was like, no, he's too young. And I'm probably glad, because I might have like hated it when I was 5 or 6 versus when I was 8, I was like a little more prepped for that undertaking.
Right. Yeah. I started playing piano. That was my first instrument when I was probably 8 or 9.
Really?
Yeah, because I didn't want to participate in any like sports at school or anything like that. But my mom was like, you have to do something, so pick something. And I was like, well, I guess I like music. So I started taking piano lessons.
Were you like really drawn to it at first, or did it like take a while to get into it?
Piano, it never clicked for me. I played piano from like the age of 9 to about 13, and then my dad got me a guitar. I'd like begged him. I was like, please let me have a guitar. And
nice.
He was like, sympathized with me and was like, we got to get this kid a guitar. So, but not until then was I like invested in getting good at an instrument. Like piano, it just never clicked for me. I wish it would have. I wish I would have like actually practiced between my lessons, but I never would. I would just go to my lesson and be like, I forget how to play. Like I practice, but I forget everything.
Right.
Yeah.
You must still play a little bit though, right? Because I think I've heard piano on several of your songs.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have retained some of that memory, and that's kind of why I wish I would have kept at it or like invested more at that age. But yeah, we had a piano in my house like growing up, so I would just kind of fiddle with stuff and self-taught a little bit here and there, but nowhere near being proficient with it.
Sure. Well, sounds proficient to me on record.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, it works there.
Yeah, that is the result of just like doing it over and over and over and over and messing up a lot. But
I feel that.
You don't hear that. You just hear the one time.
I feel that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever have a take where you mess up and you leave it in for nuance or effect?
Sometimes. I think if it sounds like a legitimate mistake to me, I usually don't leave it in. But like sometimes I will hit record before I know what I'm gonna play, and that works out like pretty well sometimes. Like I'm trying to think of an example. Like, well, yeah, there's this song that I released like several years ago called Bad Breeze, and there's like a little guitar, like acoustic guitar, like kind of dissonant solo that happens for a minute. And that was just like pressing record before I knew what I was going to play. And then I was like, oh, that's way better than if I tried to think of something.
For sure.
So I just left that in. But yeah, I don't know. Most of my mistakes I don't like, so I leave them out.
I
What
hear
about
that.
you?
There's kind of a sweet spot for me where I'll have an idea of what I want to play, and then if I can just like execute it within a certain range, I'll keep it. But I will sometimes catch myself hitting stop over and over again for like the smallest, most tiny thing. Like I get very tunnel visioned on it, and that can be difficult to feel like, oh, I'm doing something that's like inspired here, rather than just like I'm a robot trying to like play the notes perfectly. That kind of takes something out of it, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's like probably the biggest struggle of recording is trying to, strike the balance of like actually making something that sounds good.
Yeah.
And also not like crushing the life out of it by trying to make it sound really good.
For sure. Yeah.
Drums kill me with that. Drums are the hardest thing to record because like, I guess I'm just like really sensitive to like when stuff's off time or like, like if something's like a little late on a beat or something, it'll like drive me insane. And just so drums like, that drums make me go nuts, but I don't really notice it as much in other people's music. Like if someone's got a sloppy drum part in their song, like unless it's like really bad, I'm not going to care.
Yeah.
But in my stuff, I just can't stand it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's interesting because I actually made a note that like your percussion is always so interesting, and like the time signatures you work with might be fairly straightforward, but then you're doing like different syncopation within that. And I feel like your percussion is something that stands out in your songs to me anyway, like whether it's a guitar rhythm or the drum part you're playing. So you play drums and everything on your songs?
Yeah. For the most part, I do. I used to have access to a drum set.
Okay.
I'm not a drummer necessarily.
Yeah.
I can hold a beat.
Yeah.
And with recording technology now, like I've got like this program on my computer where I can like hit this snare drum that I've got next to me, and I can just use it as a snare, which is cool. It's like a natural like snare drum sound, but I can also like turn it into a kick. I can turn it, I can it like basically triggers samples.
Yeah.
So you can do a bunch of stuff, but I used to have access to my friend Danny's kit in DC. Danny played drums in our live band.
Okay.
And to answer your question, like drums are definitely what I spend the most time on with recording. Because writing the song, like obviously I want to make sure that the chord changes are to my liking and the lyrics are to my liking and all that stuff. But actually playing the guitar and the bass on the recordings doesn't take very long. That's like the part that's, I guess, comes most naturally to me. So the drums, it might be like by accident that they're like the most prominent part of my music because I think I just nitpick them the most. So that might be why they're so prominent. But I definitely care about them a lot. I want them to sound like interesting.
For sure. They do sound interesting. Like it does sound like you put time into it, but not overly so. Like I just always think like the percussion's really like the driver of the song or the melody. And
definitely.
That's cool. I would say similarly, like the drums are the thing that I'm most unsure of when I'm working on a song, or like it's like guitar. I know the tones that I kind of want, and I know like what I want to play. With drums, there's a lot more guesswork, or like I don't feel as familiar with how to like get the tuning right or get the mic placement right. That can be a challenge, but
big time.
Yeah.
Drums are just so noisy in a room, and so it's hard to like make it work. But yeah, my thought has always been like, okay, if I can make that work, then the rest is going to be easy. So
for sure.
That's why I put the work in, I guess, on that.
That's cool. Yeah, for drums, it's hard for me to get a sound like from song to song, because typically I'll track drums for a song like one day, and then a week later I'll come back and track again for a different song, and it's really hard to replicate the sound. I don't know if you feel that too. Like some days it'll be like, wow, this sounds like just like so loud and like washed out and louder than I want it to be. And then other songs, like, is this a different snare drum? Like, what? Where did the other one go?
You'll have the mic like in the exact same spot.
Yes.
You'll be hitting it the exact same way, and it's like, why is this completely different? I don't know. That's I guess it's good that some things can't be completely nailed down to a science.
Yeah,
that would be a little boring.
That's true. Probably better for it.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you wrote your first song?
I don't know if this was the first, but the first one that I remember actually when I was learning guitar from my dad, or I guess it must have been around age 8. We had this dog named Rusty. He was like a yellow lab, and so I just made this song called "Rusty Is My Favorite Dog" with my dad's assistance.
Okay,
he's probably a good editor. The song might have been worse without his presence.
Yeah.
But it was cool. It was just like this like chromatic like acoustic guitar. It kind of sounded like a spy song, like spy music.
Yeah.
But it was like about how cool and awesome my dog is.
Yeah. That's awesome. Did you record it or?
Oh, dude, I would be curious. My dad had like this little MP3 player. And like, I guess I used to record like little ideas on it. If he still has that, then there may be some version of Rusty Is My Favorite Dog that exists. But
yes, wow.
I don't know if it's still in existence.
A deep track.
Yeah, big time.
That's cool, man. My dad didn't play an instrument, but he was very much like a gearhead. Like always had like, he had a huge record collection, and he had like built speakers for his record player in high school.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and like any car he ever had, he put like a huge sound system in, which
that's awesome.
Yeah, which is like was as good as like having a dad who could shred guitar or something. Like he exposed me to so much musically.
That rocks.
Yeah.
What was his taste like in music?
So he liked a lot of classic rock, Van Halen, Queen, just like Tom Petty.
All three killer bands.
Yeah. What is blanking on this guy's name? John Mellencamp. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Just like a lot of that stuff. But I grew up in like kind of a conservative Christian home, so my dad was not like blasting that in his speakers. He was more like listening to that on the way to work, or like just kind of like listening to it privately. It wasn't something that us kids were super exposed to at a young age anyway. But
gotcha.
But my dad used to take me out to the end of our driveway to catch the bus in the morning, and we would go out in his truck, and that's when he would like play the hits. Like he would cut loose and play whatever he wanted to play.
Nice.
And so that's where I got exposed to a lot of that stuff, and like loved. That was like my favorite part of the day, was just listening to music for like 10 minutes while I waited for the bus.
Man, that's one good way to get your kids excited for school.
Oh yeah, right.
Like subconsciously, you're like, "Oh, school is good because I get to hear rock songs."
Yeah, I'm like on the bus, Van Halen playing in my head. I'm just like the coolest kid. Yeah.
My friend was showing me the isolated. There's like a YouTube video of the isolated vocal tracks from "Hot for Teacher."
Whoa!
And don't get me wrong, I love Van Halen, but that is one of the funniest videos I've ever seen, because like it's just, what is his name? David Lee Roth. That's the singer, right? Yeah, it's just his voice, but it's got all the delay, and you're also hearing him do like all the ad libs and stuff. He's like, "Yeah," and like, it's so crazy.
It's just that. Just his
voice. It's just isolated "Hot for Teacher" vocal track. I recommend people check it out.
Check that out.
It's wild.
I'll send that to my dad. He'll get a kick out of that.
Yeah, I bet he would.
Okay, you mentioned you went to college. What did you go to school for?
Originally, I went for what was essentially a political science degree. I went to American University in DC, and they have a different name for it. It's like a long acronym, but yeah, it's political science essentially. And I've always been interested in, like, I guess the humanities and history and politics. But I guess I realized like pretty quickly that, like, first of all, my interest in music was always a lot stronger than that. I think I went to college for that, kind of assuming like, okay, I got to do something to earn a living that's not music, because you can't earn a living in music. That's, you know, how I was thinking. and pretty quickly I realized that wasn't for me. It's not that I had anything against the school or like my classmates or anything. Like, you know, everybody was fine, and some of the subject matter was really interesting, but I was just like, oh, like I don't belong in this community. Like, I'm not like, I think there's a lot of really type A people in that world who are very like almost like neurotic about stuff. And so I'm very much the opposite. Sometimes in a good way and sometimes to my own detriment. But I was just like, yeah, this isn't for me. So I ended up switching over to a communications major. And then I did an audio tech minor. So for the second half of college, I got to like learn about, you know, mixing and mastering more and learn about the recording process and actually work, or, you know, our classroom just was a studio, which was really cool. So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
That's such a cool thing to be exposed to and to like have access to. I feel like that's one of the hardest things with music is like when I do go into the studio, you pay for it. And so learning stuff there is like, I'm always kind of like, wow, this is really expensive to learn, but it's cool that you went to school and had exposure to that.
Did you, have you recorded a lot of your solo music like in an actual studio environment?
Only a few things. Anything I've done has been with my friend Levi Schlosser, who has a band, Fancy Numbers. He works at a local studio here called the Sugar Tank, and he's like one of the engineers there. So basically he asked if I was interested in like learning some of that stuff, and in doing so I would just come in and like record a couple songs that I had demoed. That's been about the extent of it, and I'm still very like I know very little about like analog recording, and even like the DAW he uses, like he uses Logic, or maybe it's Ableton. I think he uses Ableton, but anything else I've recorded has been on GarageBand at my house. So
nice.
There's just like, it's like I know GarageBand really well, and I feel like it's just a tool that I know the ins and outs of. And then I feel really dumb when it comes to like analog recording and just all of that stuff. Do you typically record analog? Like, do you do it in a studio, or do you record analog at home, or what's that like?
I would love to have like analog gear. It's just so expensive. Like it's even the cheap stuff in that world is still really expensive. But yeah, so I record up until I guess the last album that I put out. Everything before that I had done just on my like HP laptop with Reaper. And I just have like a Focusrite interface and two mics and so I would just go into Reaper, which is like a free, it's like a free / paid thing. But then I realized actually towards the end of my senior year of college, I was like, oh, I'm like an audio tech student. And before I leave school, like as long as I'm still a student, I can just buy Pro Tools for half off because I'm a student. So like I think with like literally 2 days left of me being like enrolled, I just like bought Pro Tools for 50% off. So that's what I've used ever since graduating college is Pro Tools. And you know, that's what I was learning on in school. So it wasn't as daunting to start, because you know, those programs can be like a real headache at first to get your mind around, but I'd already had like a bunch of like, you know, hands-on experience with it, so that's what I use now. All
right, do you feel pretty good about like navigating that now? Do you feel comfortable like doing what you need to do?
I mean, especially because recently I've started mixing for other people, like it's one of my like side jobs now that I do is like mixing and mastering, and so it forces you to learn stuff pretty quickly. Like I'm the type of person where with my music, like I don't obsess too much over every little detail. I just once it's feeling good to me, I'm like, okay, you know, I'm gonna leave it alone. But with other people's music, I want to like give it a bit more of like the pro treatment since they're paying for it. So that has forced me to like learn my program better and learn what to listen for more. And so doing it for other people is like, I think the stakes are somehow higher for me. So then it forces me to like focus more.
That makes sense. You have to like put aside your personal, like what you want your music to sound like, and kind of step back further and be like, what are other people looking for?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's cool.
That's hard to do.
Yeah. I believe that. Has it influenced the way you approach songwriting or recording at all?
I've just slowly started to notice how it affects me, because I used to mix all of my own music.
Yeah.
And I would kind of be like mixing as I record. Like it was sort of like, okay, I play the acoustic guitar. I already know what sounds wonky in it, so I like EQ it or whatever, and I just do it piece by piece that way. But after mixing for other people, it's like made me realize how much you kind of have to destroy a song to like mix it properly. You have you have to make decisions like, okay, you know what? Maybe we mute the 9th guitar. Like maybe we don't need the 9th guitar in there. Right. And I'm so like attached to everything that I record that there's no way I can be that objective with my own stuff. So, now I have my friend Andrew, who was also, his name's Andrew Scott, and he's like played bass in the live band. He's one of the best musicians that I know. Yeah. Now once I get my songs to like a certain level of mixed, I just send it to him and I'm like, just destroy this and make it better through destruction. Yeah.
I feel like there's a falling off point, at least in my experience, where you tinker with mixing enough that you become like just like incapable of being productive anymore. You know what I mean? Like you record for like whatever, like 25% of the song, and then 75% of the time you spend just like tiny little tweaks that probably don't make a huge difference, but they do to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's kind of nice that then you can send your stuff off and be like, all right, I'm taking this as far as I can. I trust you to take it the rest of the way.
Yeah. It's been really freeing to do that. Like, I was so obsessively, trying to control my own music so much like early on. And I'm happy with how a lot of those like early records turned out, but it's nice to give up a little control. And I've been like working with other people more recently, which was something that I didn't do as much, but like I'll have friends, drum on my songs. I'll have friends contribute. Like my roommate Caroline, she her project is Infinity Crush, if you've ever heard of that.
What is it again?
It's called Infinity Crush.
I feel like I've heard that, but I can't think of it right now.
Yeah, it's really cool. She's a really good musician and she's a great singer, and like I had her sing on a song on the latest album I put out, and so like just slowly giving up like total control and allowing other people in has been really nice. Yeah,
that's cool.
Do you work with other people much on your stuff?
No, not very much. With Levi, I have like he's had input into some of the songs we worked on together in the studio, and like he'll record something and send it to me. I'll be like, that sounds great. Like put that in.
Nice.
But no, I have not worked too much with other people. Obviously during the, COVID, it's like not easy to get together with people or have people collaborate, but it is something I'm interested in and I'm like thinking about for the future. Yeah. Cause I feel like there's so much more to be gained when other people collaborate with you, like it just gives another perspective into the song in a way that I don't have that perspective,
Yeah, totally. And I understand completely, going it alone. Cause for me, I don't know if it's the same for you, but I like really enjoy like working in solitude on something. Like I can like focus better.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm fairly introverted in general, so that probably contributes, but, like I don't really believe that like two or more can sit down and like write a song together necessarily. Like that to me has always been a very clunky thing to try, because it's, usually like the idea's got to be, born by one person or whatever. So, but when people contribute you know, their own ideas on top of that idea, it can be really cool. But yeah, I've been in a room where like people are trying to like write lyrics together.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, maybe that works for like some people, but dude,
not good. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd rather like, oh man, I'd rather do anything than write lyrics together. That's just like that's like scary to me.
That is, yeah. I can't see that going too well.
Yeah.
I do feel like working, like I relate to what you're saying about working in solitude, because I feel like that's where I can get into a zone of like working on something. And I feel like that's where the ideas come most uninhibitedly, if that makes sense. Like
totally.
When I'm working with other people, I feel more like it's not as easy to get in that zone or whatever. Like I can perform, but I can't like go beyond that performance type of playing.
Exactly. Yeah. There's like a certain part of yourself that you can't really let loose. Yeah. At least for, you know, speaking as myself, there's a part of me that I can't like let loose if even just one other person is in the room, you know?
Yeah. How does that affect playing live? Do you feel like when you play live, it's very reflexive, or do you feel like you can be present and like really enjoy that?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I like playing live. I think it does make me pretty anxious a lot of the time to do so. Because, you know, you're like putting yourself on display. Yeah. So it really depends on like the night or the show. I mean, there's some shows where I'm like stressing about certain things, or like maybe we haven't like quite figured out like what we're doing on the bridge or something. Yeah. And I'm like, you know, if I'm in that mindset, it's very difficult to be present. But there's some shows where, I don't know, like the energy in the crowd is good, and you know, me and the rest of the band are feeling good, and those are really fun, because then you can like stop worrying so much about the song in the moment and just like look around and like take it in, and that's really cool. I love that feeling when things just click and you're like participating in what's happening rather than like just being like so locked inside yourself. Yeah I relate to that a lot. I also like playing shows. I feel like it's a muscle that I need to exercise in order for it to stay healthy or whatever. Do you have a preference between, like, if you could be playing a show or recording, do you have a preference between the two? My preference is recording, because at least with the type of music I do, it's very recording centric to me. Like I guess my MO is like, on a lot of some songs, I want it to be like a really straightforward song, and I want like the lyrics to be front and center. I want the melody to be front and center. Yeah. Then other songs, it's really about all the layering and like how stacking layer upon layer of different elements can make you feel. And that's a lot harder to reproduce live. When you're limited to like 4 instruments, you know? So, also playing live, you're reciting something, and you're not necessarily creating something. At least that's how it is for me. So, and I don't see that as a bad thing. I really enjoy the energy of it. But I think if I had to pick between the two, like, it's always more fun to create something than to like play something back.
Yeah, I get that. I totally understand that. They're like two different elements, or like two different goals or outcomes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, you mentioned that you've been mixing people's music as a side gig, and I understand there's another side gig that I'd like for you to talk about, if you would be willing.
Yeah, this one's pretty crazy. So, in like September of 2020, last year, I quit my job working at a call center. I was working at basically, I don't know anything about like 401ks, but that's what I was hired to assist customers with. Okay. So they like train you, basically just, you're like helping people like do like hardship withdrawals and like loans from their 401k. You're like assisting people like who need to take money out for various reasons. And that job was, it started out okay. But then the pandemic hit, and like I was taking like 70 to 75 calls a day. Yeah, it's back to back, it's constant, and most people are pissed.
Yeah.
So it was just really grinding me down. And it was also from home, which is somehow like more depressing. Like you're just,
like
looking out.
Space.
Yeah, exactly. There's no like separation between like work troubles and being at home. And so, I ended up leaving that job. And I've been doing various things since. Like I work like 3 days a week, like doing inventory for this warehouse now. But yeah, sorry. I'm really like elongating this answer. To answer your question, one of the side hustles that I have been doing recently is voice acting for the YouTube channel that does Baby Shark.
There it is.
Yeah, they're called Pinkfong.
Okay.
And it's like a South Korean. They're like a huge company. I think they're owned by Samsung.
Really?
Yeah, they're massive. Well, I mean, Baby Shark is just like the biggest child entertainment thing right now. Yeah, it's wild. And so this guy that I know in Raleigh, I've known him for years. He's a really good engineer, like recording engineer named Chris Bodal. Mm-hmm. He started, I guess he just like landed this job with them where he, works with like local voice actors, and he records them in his home studio. It's a really nice home studio.
Yeah.
And he just like hit me up and was like, "Hey man, I know you're like looking for work. Like, I don't know if you have any voice acting experience, but Pinkfong is looking for voice actors, and like you should just send in an audition tape." And I was like, "Okay, I have the means to record myself, and I can like make it sound pretty good for an audition tape." So I just did like a minute of like me singing like "Ring Around the Rosie" and doing like weird like character voices that a kid might like, or I guess I'm not an actor, so I really don't know, but but apparently they liked it and they like accepted the audition, and now I do like a few hours a month for them of voice acting. Okay. And I voiced the part of a singing gorilla, as well as a lion that falls in love with a deer. Nice. On their Netflix special.
Okay, so this is on Netflix. That was going to be my next question. All right, I'm definitely going to check this out right after.
I think it's called Baby Shark Space Adventure. They didn't tell me. Like, they don't tell Chris. Chris just like called me one day and he was like, "Hey man, you're on Netflix."
No way.
Yeah.
That's wild, man. It doesn't sound like a ton of work. Would you say it is or not really?
No, I mean, they send you like, sometimes like if you have like an hour booked or like 2 hours, you'll have to do like anywhere between like 6 and 10 songs, sometimes even more.
Okay.
So you have to like prep because they expect you to know the melody like pretty much exactly. Yeah. And you obviously like, you don't have to memorize the words, like you bring in a script or whatever, but you pack a lot of songs into that small window of time.
Okay.
But no, I mean, they're really easy to work with. It's a good gig. I can't complain about it at all. And I'm glad that it's not many more hours than that because I have so many other things going on.
Sure.
Music wise and work wise. So, but yeah, it's sweet. If I could do it as like a full-time thing, I probably would. My throat would probably be sore a lot of the time because I'm like growling like a tiger or something. Yeah.
Oh man, I gotta check this out. That's too good.
Well, I hope you can make it through. It is a kid's thing, so I hope it's not too dull. But enjoy.
I have a little bit of experience with it. My wife's niece, they lived in Rhode Island, and we were visiting with them like at least a year ago. And that was on TV, and I was like, wow, so this is what Baby Shark is. Yeah. That's cool.
Baby Shark sensation.
Yeah, it really is. Like, it's huge amongst kids, and it's crazy.
Yeah, that the original video, I think it like recently became like the most viewed YouTube video of all time. Whoa. It's got like billions, like billions of views. It blows my mind.
That's crazy. And you're part of that, man. That's cool.
In a very small way, yes.
Yeah. So you quit your job at the call center. Are you totally focused on like making music, like your full-time gig, or like obviously doing some side hustles to pour into music? Is that kind of what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, It's weird. I like the way my life is set up now. My schedule can be kind of crazy sometimes. Just because, there's a lot of like when I'm like mixing more than one EP or album at a time, there's a lot of like communication back and forth. It's a lot of like emailing around the clock and stuff. So it can get a little hectic in that regard. And then, I do work like a normal 9 to 5, like 3 days a week.
Right. You said, okay.
Yeah. That's just for like an electronics manufacturer in Raleigh. So I'm doing like inventory stuff. But yeah, I like the way my life is structured. I think obviously I would love to do music full time. But it started out like, I think it does for probably most people who make music. It starts out as like an escape thing. And so I do worry a little bit, like if I was able to somehow make music like the constant thing that gives me all the income I need. Hopefully I wouldn't get tired of it, but I do think it functions very well as an escape, and it would be weird to not have it be an escape.
I totally relate to that question of wondering like, what place would it have in my life if it was the way I made money? And like, would the need for money like shift my enjoyment of it, or like shift my, I don't know, like the way I approach doing it? I wonder that sometimes too.
Definitely. What do you do for a living?
I work at a nonprofit service provider for adults with intellectual disabilities. Nice. So I went to school for social work here in PA at Millersville, and I got my bachelor's and my master's in social work from there.
Cool.
So I've been in the social work field since I graduated, which was like 5 years ago now. And I've worked with different populations. I was like a caseworker in the city of Lancaster for a little bit. But I have pretty much since college had a 9 to 5, like just something Monday through Friday. They've been different jobs, but music has always been like a side thing.
Sure.
And very much like what you said, like just an escape from, just like an outlet, like a creative outlet. I've been fortunate to be able to keep my job through the pandemic, at least thus far. And I truly love the job and the people that I work with. Like it's a great job with really great people.
That's awesome.
Thanks. I'm happy with it. I've also, like, as an artist, kind of, I feel like there's this sense that you need to do music full time in order to be like validated as an artist, for it to like validate your work or your identity as a musician or whatever. And I feel like that's like, I know that's not true, but I feel like I'm conditioned, or we're conditioned to think that way. So that's been an idea that I've like constantly gone back and forth on and like pushed back against, but also had this like nagging voice of like, you haven't risked everything you could risk to make it happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
Do you feel that?
Oh yeah. I feel that all the time. I think I definitely take a little bit of comfort in knowing that probably most of the bands that I really love, or if not most, a fair amount of them definitely have day jobs or did have day jobs even in their heyday. I think, especially if you're not touring constantly, I don't really see how you make a living as a musician, or as solely a musician. Right. I mean, if you have something like mixing and mastering, or if you have other like music adjacent things that you can do, then I could see how it would work. But like, I mean, even really big bands, like when I actually like think about how the numbers work out from my experience, I'm like, man, they must be cutting it close,
Yeah, so true. Like you pretty much have to spend every hour of the day doing something, whether it's touring or like marketing your stuff or selling merch. Or streaming, like those are like in my mind, the main income things.
Yeah. What is it? Like 1 million Spotify streams equates to like roughly 4,000. And that's assuming you don't have a label that's taken part of that too.
That's true. Yeah. I think that's probably right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with like the petition to, what is it, like penny per stream for Spotify. There's like a petition to get Spotify to pay artists penny per stream.
Dude, I got to find that. I got to sign it.
For sure. Yeah. I saw
that would
it
make a massive difference.
It would.
Yeah.
It could like be, it could be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Streaming is it's such a weird time too. I feel like, I grew up having a very different idea of what it means to be successful as a musician. Like you get signed and then your label like does everything for you. You know, you just like chill and write songs, which is not at all how it goes. And have you pushed really hard to work with labels, or like, has that been a goal for you to get signed or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely toyed with the idea, and I've definitely like sent some of my music to labels. You know, most of my most recent releases, like the past three, it's just three. Yeah, the past three full-length albums that I've put out have all been through Z Tapes, which is a cool tape label.
Philip, right?
You know, Philip. Yeah, Philip's the man. He's a really nice guy and really like very passionate about the music that he puts out. So yeah, Z Tapes has been great. I mean, obviously, you know, Z Tapes is different from like your normal label setup because I'm not signing a contract with them. You know, he's not like obligated to put money into promo for me or anything. It's not like it's not that transactional of a relationship in general, which is cool to me. I actually like that. He, you know, did vinyl for one of my albums called Bygones, and he just like fronted the cost himself.
Wow.
Like he takes on a lot of risk like that, which I think is really cool. And you know, essentially I really like that Z Tapes relationship. I mean, it would be nice to have a label in the United States for a lot of practical reasons. Like, you know, when touring is possible again, like I've had to book my own tours essentially the past 2 times I've done it. And even for a week-long tour, that is such a headache. Like, you know, if I wanted to do more than that, a label would be really nice because they could help out with that. And also promo, you know, like labels can pay a promo company however many, you know, hundred or thousands of dollars that it is. And, you know, that stuff is like really valuable still. Like, you know, if you pay a college radio promo company, then your album's going to be on like the desk of like every music director in the country for college radio. And there's a lot of like benefits to that. But I haven't really put too much time or thought into it.
Well, one thing I was going to say was it's so cool when people like Philip do that, like are just investing in artists because they believe in like just getting the stuff out there in like a physical format. I'm working with a guy, Greg Knowles, and he's a guy from PA, and he's just like been in the music scene for years and has like a small label that he runs called Chumpire. And
cool.
He's actually the one who's helping me do the Marianne vinyl.
Nice.
So we're going through a pressing plant in Philly, and Greg's just like helped out with the cost, and he's just like, I just want this to be in people's hands. And I'm just like, my mind's kind of blown by that kind of mindset. That's so cool. And like, that's exactly what it should be about, as opposed to like, you know, how do I get signed or achieve X goal that I think I need to do to be legitimate.
Yeah, that guy sounds great. I love, there's people like that out there, you know, who just like really love music and are willing to like stick their necks out for what they like. And I think that's super cool. I love that.
It's a good demonstration of how that stuff is doable. Like these things that I, in my mind, think like, well, you need a label to do that, but like you can work your way around it.
I think like the concept of a record label will probably be obsolete within the next 10 to 15 years. Considering the way streaming works. I mean, you know, if a kid, or if any band gets their song put on some like kids TikTok, right? If that, if that TikTok blows up, like
there's the money.
Yeah, and it's like you might get more fans through that now than like a Pitchfork write-up like
right?
10 years ago. Like I would argue that you definitely would get more fans that way.
I think so.
So that there's no like model now for how it works. There's no like model for success. It's just,
it's true.
It's a different time.
Yeah. I totally hear what you're saying, and I agree that like tech is changing the way people consume music. I feel like historically albums have been like the appropriate way to distribute music, but I feel like people are probably moving more towards singles and like just trying to get that TikTok hit.
Yeah.
Some people, maybe not everyone.
No, I think you're right. I mean, singles, like with the way Spotify works and the way that streaming works in general, singles are, if you're trying to be successful, if you're trying to like, maximize like a fan base or whatever, like singles are much more logical than an album, because you can keep people like every few months you can drop a little song, it's not like you build anticipation for this 12 song thing that nobody even like. I love albums, and I feel like not to be like born in the wrong generation or anything, but like I really don't want to see that format go away, because I love listening to full albums, but I doubt many people listen to full albums.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially because of playlists,
Yeah. In my experience, people listen to like the first 6 or 7 songs, and then like the last 5, you can pretty much have not put them on there at all.
Big same. Yeah, big same.
Yeah. But I agree with you. Like I love albums. Like that is definitely my preferred way of like engaging with music, is just listening to something straight through that was like a cohesive thing in the artist's mind. When you work on music, do you write do you like set out with an album in mind, or do you write like storyboard it sort of and be like, I'm going to have 12 songs, or is it kind of like you record a single and then another single and like just build your way up?
Usually after I've finished like a project, there's like a long period of time, like probably 6 to 8 months usually, where I'm kind of just throwing a bunch of ideas at the wall, and most of them I don't end up liking and don't pursue.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, normally the goal is an album. So usually I'll finish a song, or I'll get like close to finish with a song that feels like the first track. I'm like, oh, this isn't necessarily like a single, but it's a good first track. And that's usually when I start like I guess, like, to use your word, like storyboarding it more. I also, like you, I really enjoy an album that flows nicely front to back. And so I definitely, once I have like a few songs that feel like really strong to me, I start like almost like writing for the album at that point. But now, like recently, I have like this one song that I'm probably going to put out pretty soon just as a single. Yeah. Because it just doesn't fit with the other stuff I'm working on.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I might have like an EP of kind of like louder, rocky shoegaze songs.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask that. Do you ever have songs that don't really fit your mold and you want to like do as a different project, or like release separately from anything else?
I think I definitely like experiment with stuff that doesn't really sound like my solo music. Like I have made some stuff that's a little more electronic. I've made some stuff that's like a little more abrasive, but generally I don't like those experiments enough to release them even under a different name. This time around, a lot of the stuff I've been working on instrumentally sounded a lot different than my previous stuff. And I was like, oh, maybe this is like a lot more like, I don't know, there's a few songs that it's a lot more like distorted electric guitar stuff, which isn't something I do a ton of normally, but and I was like, wow, maybe I should release this under a different name. But then once I sang on it, I was just like, oh, nope. Like, that's like, it's like inescapably me once I've sung on it. I'm just like, yeah, that still this project.
Unavoidable. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had the same experience lately, actually. I have like a couple of tracks that just only feel appropriate being heavier. And I'm trying to get my head around like what I want it to sound like exactly. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm just like tinkering with those, and I don't know when they'll be done, but
I'd be really curious to hear kind of heavy Tyler Burkhart music.
Yeah, me too. I'm just not sure how it's going to go, but we'll see. I don't know. I might present him to Levi and be like, help me, help me.
Yeah. Get some studio wizardry on it.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Okay, well, it's been an hour. If I can just ask a few more questions to wrap up, is that cool?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Are you reading anything right now? Anything you're into?
Yeah, my for Christmas, my mom got me this book called The Secret History. I think it came out a few years ago. I haven't read much fiction lately, and so like my only ask, like my mom's a writer, so she's like she has really good like taste in all of that, and my only ask of her for Christmas this year was like, can you pick me out a book that you think I would really like that's like fiction?
Good fiction.
Yeah, and so it's a cool book. It's about this kind of like pretentious young guy who moves from California to this like to go to college in New Hampshire, this like kind of like wealthy private school, and he's like interested in like Greek and like the classics and all that, and there's this professor that teaches that stuff, but the professor's kind of eccentric, and he only has 5 students, and he like doesn't accept most students, and he like has total control over their schedules, and it's like this weird like cult thing that the kid joins, and I'm like probably a fifth of the way into it, but it's really good so far. I like it.
It sounds good.
Yeah. How about you? You reading anything good?
Yeah. I'm reading Dune right now.
Nice.
Yeah. I never saw any of the movies. Well, I mean the one movie, right? Like the David Lynch one, but there's another one coming out too. And I wanted to be able to say after I saw the movie, like the book was better. So
yeah, you got to be able to say that.
I'm that guy all the way, but the book's pretty cool. It's a little dense. Like it's pretty, I don't read sci-fi like at all. I like fiction a lot. So it's kind of like learning the language and like different words for the book, but I like it.
Nice.
Any albums you're really into right now or bands you've been digging?
Yeah, there's this band that actually, weirdly enough, I had like 3 friends independently of one another text me the link to this album in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And the weirdest part about it is it's an album from 2011. So I don't know like what they all like. Is there some revival of this that's occurring somewhere? I don't know, but it's this band called Bobby. It's all caps Bobby. And I think they're from like Western Massachusetts. But and the album it's like, I guess they're self-titled. It's also called Bobby.
Okay.
But it's really cool. It's like kind of Animal Collective-y, which I'm a big Animal Collective fan. It's longer songs for the most part, which I usually really don't like. It's like if someone does a long song, it's got to be really good in order for me to have the attention span. But yeah, all these songs are kind of long and like drony, but I don't know, it just works for me. So yeah. That's what I've been into lately. Bobby,
I'll check that out. That's cool.
Yeah, there's this song called Spores. It's like probably the catchy. It's like the single of the album. I'd recommend starting with that. It's a cool one.
I'll check that out.
Yeah.
I've been listening to Hum's new album Inlet, and I think
I don't know Hum.
Last year they're like I guess they were bigger in the 90s or like 2000s. I had like Levi had told me to listen to them a bunch of times, and I just never did. And then one day, recently, I heard Inlet and I loved it. And it's like heavier guitar work, like kind of shoegazy, but also heavy. It's pretty sweet. Cool. I would recommend for sure.
Yeah, I've been looking for more stuff like that. I've been listening to heavier things recently, so I'll check it out.
One thing I like about it is they're lead singer sings. Like he still sings. It's not, I have nothing against screaming. It's just not like what I'm looking for right now. So it's like a really, really nice. I like it a lot.
Cool.
How can people support you or like listen to your music? What's the best way for them to get a hold of stuff by you?
I guess all the main channels, Bandcamp is probably the best way to directly, like if you actually want to purchase an album of mine or purchase a song, that's the most direct way to do it. You can also download all my stuff for free on there. I don't have like a paywall against doing that. And it's just my name, maxgowan.bandcamp.com. Or you can just search me up on Spotify. I don't think there's any like major streaming service that my stuff isn't on. So, people are welcome to listen there. There's also a donate button that I recently added if someone did want to directly support that way, but of course, no obligation. Those are the main two ways. It's all digital. So, if you want the physical, you still gotta, you still gotta go through the digital.
Well, that's like all I have for today. I appreciate you taking the time, man. It's good to get to talk to you a little more and like hear where you're at as a person, and also get kind of a window into your songwriting and your life as an artist too.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast. I'm actually shocked that it's already been an hour.
Me too. I'm pleasantly surprised. That went really fast.
Yeah, it did. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on. It was good to talk to you too, because I'm a huge fan of your stuff. So
thanks, man.
Yeah, we'll have to play a show again once that's possible.
Yeah, I would like that.
Thanks for listening. This has been Talking with Tyler. You can find Max's music on most streaming websites, or you can support him directly at maxgowan.bandcamp.com.